So for that person listening who is resonating with what you're saying, maybe they, hearing that for the first time, and it's kind of like an aha moment for them. How do they then walk that out if the programming has been there for so long where they have felt like this was the ultimate thing for them, and maybe they did forsake some past dreams, goals, and ambitions for the sake of motherhood? How do they, now that they've heard you say that, kind of walk in that to get to that place that you're at right now?
Yeah, I would start remembering who you were before you had kids. Remembering the whole person that you were, the things that you loved to do, the things that brought you joy, the things that just gave you a sense of life and purpose and fulfillment outside of that relationship with your children, and begin to implement those things back into your life. I stopped writing for a long season after having my oldest. And it wasn't until my second one came around that I started writing again, even for no one necessarily to read. Journaling, I went back to journaling, and then I eventually started sharing those words. And so it just was going, gosh, who was I before I had kids? And so I think that's one of the things, is to remember your whole self. Who have you been before kids, and who do you want to be after kids? And spending time developing that person. And then I think some of it is just that awareness piece. Once you can do differently, and alleviating some of that pressure, or maybe even, I know it's easy to judge other people. I think that's something that changes in us once we know differently, that we don't judge another woman for a choice that she made, whether the woman chose to stay home and not work anymore with her kids, or she chose to go back to work full time with her kids. I think when we alleviate that pressure that we're putting on motherhood as a calling, it helps us to be less judgmental towards each other and go, whatever's best for you. If it is best for you to do this as a mom, then that is great, even if it's not best for me. And so I think that's a big heart piece, along with the action step of remembering who you were before children.
You also talk about the self-imposed pressures, let alone the pressures from the world and TV and social media, of being this perfect mom. Nobody's perfect. Nobody except God. But you talk about the self-imposed pressures that you too felt of having to be this perfect mom, but you were sort of awakened through your journey of this with your daughters, your journey of walking this out with your daughters. Talk about that, because so many mothers struggle with that. I have to be perfect. Like, they beat themselves up if they get loud at their kids. Maybe they were too hard on their children and the kids cried, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they were having a bad day. But talk about that perfection with motherhood.
I think I thought that the best model for my children was to see me being so perfect that I've got it all together and I've figured out how to do everything and I'm not messing up. And, they can just, oh, look, perfect example, watch it out. But what I realized is what they needed was a mom who was just human, a mom who struggled the same way, a mom who sometimes was sad, was sometimes angry, but that sometimes happy, that felt emotions, that sometimes failed things, and to figure out how to rise up and move forward from failure. That is what my children actually needed to see to figure out how to do this, because the truth is they're not perfect either, and they're going to walk through life and they're going to face hard things, and they're going to have to figure out how to be resilient and how to handle failure and how to be sad and know that that's okay to be sad or mad, and all the negative emotions that sometimes we want to be perfect and not feel. And so when I realized that I just need to be a better human, I just need to model what it's like to be a human in front of them. There was pressure. The pressure fell off of me in that way too, because again, I still like to do things. Just my makeup is like, I want to do it right the first time. That's my wiring. But I have come so far in allowing myself to not be so perfect, and that they can see that I don't have it all together sometimes, and that I fail at things, because, or even doing hard things. I remember writing the book. It was in the smack dab in the lockdown of 2020, and I had to write this book, and it was hard. And I remember my youngest looking at me, she's like, gosh, if it's so hard, why are you doing it? And I'm like, because I can do hard things, and you can do hard things. You can, just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't do something. And to me, again, that tied into perfection, because if I was operating in a perfect way, then maybe it wouldn't be hard. it'd be easy. But the truth is that's just not how life works. And so all of that modeling just how to be a human, which includes a lot of hardship and a lot of failure and a lot of figuring things out, that helped me let go of some of that perfectionism that I still feel like I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I still am working on that on, man, daily basis, it feels like.
And so I guess along those same lines with perfectionism is the super mom walking around with the cape. And I think the pressure gets magnified by the advent of social media. So you
Yeah.
see other people with picture perfect kids and family life, and they're moving upward in their career, and they're taking vacations, and they have a six-figure business, and they are working hard at church. They're taking all these snapshots, putting it on social media, and quite naturally, you start to compare.
In the community,
And
kids are in all these
yeah,
activities, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of almost second nature to wear that cape of supermom, um, and I'm sure that it's not a healthy thing long term. So was that something that you dealt with at all in your journey? And if it was, what did you do to counteract it and find a more healthy place to sit?
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in that. I mean, and in fact, I mean, there were times in my motherhood career that I would forget to even take the picture, let alone post it on social media. And they're like, oh gosh, we were at the, kindergarten graduation. And I was just like watching her graduate. I didn't think about like, taking the family shot and making sure we had all this and then post it. And so there were so many times where I was like, gosh, I'm like failing at this mom thing because I'm not even remember to take the picture. So I do think there's this pressure to like be all the things that if you're gonna, you got to be room mom, and you've got to, even if you're working full time, somehow you've got to make every field trip, or you've got to create something super Pinterest worthy of your kids' birthdays, or there's just all this pressure that somehow we got to create all these experiences for our children that are Instagram worthy. And the thing that kept coming to me as I was wrestling with that and kind of pushing at that for myself, kind of two things. One was I would think about the things, if I heard myself say should or supposed to, well, I should do that. Like, well, a good mom, you know, she's supposed to show up for this event, get off work, show up for the thing, or, should do this, shouldn't do that, supposed to. I really started paying attention when I was saying those words. And then just questioning it. Sometimes, yeah, I needed to show up for that thing. Okay. But then there's some things that I was just doing simply because I felt like that's what a good mom or a super mom was supposed to do. So I started paying attention when I said that, and then just kind of getting curious about it and questioning it. But the other thing I started to realize was that at the end of the day, showing up is enough. That, whatever is, left undone or didn't get done, whatever it may be, my presence and showing up is what is really winning with our children. Is choosing after a hard day to show back up in that relationship, right? You have a fight with your kid. It's hard. If you've ever raised a strong-willed kid, you know how hard those relationships can be, how many fights come along. And it's choosing to show back up again. Showing up is enough. And that's what I really started to realize, is that at the end of the day, I may not be a super mom. I may just be like the world's most okayest mom, like third place here, not even first place. But showing up is really enough. My presence. I was at the kindergarten graduation. I may not have taken any photos or posted them online, but my presence was there. And that's a big shift when we can go, okay, like I don't have to be the best, but I can show up, and that's winning.